Stop everything you're doing right now, because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about international football. Before you scroll past this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you're about to witness the most explosive diplomatic crisis in modern football history, and the fallout is going to be massive. This isn't about standard transfer drama, contract disputes, or managerial sackings. What we're looking at is a catastrophic situation that threatens to permanently ban World Cup champions from playing in the Premier League, destroy club investments worth hundreds of millions, and create a diplomatic crisis between two nations that goes far beyond sport. The most powerful newspapers across Britain are running this story with language so aggressive that it's sending shockwaves through every boardroom and federation office across Europe. So, what exactly triggered this absolute chaos? Well, it all started with one unforgettable night that changed football forever. A night that didn't just produce a shocking result, but ripped open wounds between two nations that many thought had started to heal decades ago. There was a match played in Atlanta, inside the iconic Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that would become the flashpoint for everything that followed. Argentina versus England in a World Cup semifinal. Nearly 70,000 fans packed into that stadium, while hundreds of millions more watched from every corner of the globe. This wasn't just another football match. This was a fixture loaded with 40 years of bitter history, unresolved conflict, and national pride that runs deeper than any sport. Argentina came into that match as the reigning world champions, led by Lionel Scaloni, and still featuring Lionel Messi in what many assumed would be his final World Cup campaign. They'd been absolutely dominant throughout the tournament, going undefeated in the group stage against Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. They'd already shocked everyone by coming back from 2 goals down against Egypt, then defeating Switzerland in extra time to reach the semifinals. This team was on an absolute mission. England, meanwhile, carried the desperate hopes of a nation that hadn't won a World Cup since 1966. With stars like Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham leading the charge, this talented generation genuinely believed they could finally end decades of hurt and bring football home. The pressure on both teams was absolutely immense. The match itself delivered everything anyone could have hoped for in terms of drama and quality. England controlled large portions of the game, dominating possession and creating dangerous chances. Then, in the 55th minute, Anthony Gordon gave the Three Lions the lead, hammering home a perfect cross from Morgan Rogers. The English fans in Atlanta erupted. The thousands of Argentine supporters who'd made the journey went completely silent. It looked like England's dream was becoming reality. But Argentina refused to accept defeat. In the 74th minute, Alexis Mac Allister rose above the defense and powered a header toward goal, only to see it crash against Jordan Pickford's post. Moments later, Pickford made another spectacular save to deny Argentina again. It genuinely seemed like fate had chosen England to advance. Then came the 85th minute. Enzo Fernández, the player who would soon find himself at the absolute center of the biggest controversy, picked up the ball well outside the box and absolutely unleashed a rocket that gave Pickford zero chance. The stadium exploded. Argentina had their equalizer. The momentum had completely shifted. And then, deep into the 2nd minute of stoppage time, Lionel Messi delivered one of those magical assists that only he can produce. And Lisandro Martínez met it with a thunderous header, 2-1 to Argentina. The comeback was complete. They were through to the World Cup final, and England's dreams were shattered once again. What happened in the minutes immediately following that final whistle is what transformed a memorable football match into an international crisis that threatens careers and damages diplomatic relations. As Argentina's players celebrated wildly with their supporters, as cameras captured every emotional moment, something appeared on the field that nobody in any position of authority was prepared to handle. From somewhere, whether from the stands or from the team's own equipment, a massive banner was unfurled by celebrating Argentine players. This wasn't a banner celebrating the victory, the goal scorers, or the achievement of reaching another World Cup final. This was a direct political statement about one of the most sensitive territorial disputes in modern history. The banner read, "Las Malvinas son Argentinas." The Falkland Islands are Argentine. The images spread across social media with terrifying speed. Within minutes, thousands were sharing photos and videos. Within an hour, major news outlets globally were running the story. Within hours, British politicians were making furious statements demanding action. And within a day, this had become a full-blown international incident. Multiple high-profile players were clearly visible in photographs and videos holding that banner, posing with it, celebrating around it. Giovanni Lo Celso was among the first to spread it open. Lisandro Martínez of Manchester United held it proudly with both hands. Cristian Romero of Tottenham displayed it alongside his teammates. Nicolas Otamendi was clearly visible participating. Even Enzo Fernández of Chelsea, the man who'd scored Argentina's equalizer, was spotted joining the celebration. These weren't unknown squad players. These were Premier League stars earning millions of pounds, living in British communities, supported financially by British fans. And here they were, on American soil, but broadcast globally, making a political statement that directly challenged British sovereignty over territory that Britain defended in a war that cost 255 British lives. The reaction from the British public was instantaneous and absolutely furious. This wasn't just hurt feelings. People genuinely felt betrayed. Social media exploded with anger. Talk radio was flooded with calls demanding consequences. Veterans organizations issued statements condemning the players. Politicians from across the political spectrum demanded accountability. To understand why this provoked such rage, you need to understand what the Falklands conflict means to Britain. In 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, which Britain had controlled for over a century and a half. Britain sent a naval task force 8,000 miles to retake the islands. The conflict lasted 74 days. 649 Argentine military personnel died. 255 British servicemen lost their lives. 3 Falkland Islander civilians were killed. For Britain, those islands represent sovereignty, sacrifice, and national honor. For Argentina, they represent territory they believe was unjustly taken and should be returned. It's an issue that neither nation has ever truly resolved. Successive Argentine governments have maintained their claim. Britain has consistently refused to negotiate sovereignty, citing the islanders' right to self-determination. So when Argentine footballers playing in England and earning British pounds chose to publicly display that political message after eliminating England from the World Cup, many British people saw it as the ultimate insult. These players live in England. Their children attend English schools. They benefit from English infrastructure, healthcare, and security. British fans pay enormous prices for tickets and subscriptions that fund these players' salaries. And this was how they chose to celebrate, by deliberately reopening the most painful wound in modern British history. But who actually created that banner? Where did it come from? How did it get onto the field? These are crucial questions that still don't have completely clear answers. Some reports claim the banner was improvised from hotel materials, possibly even bed sheets. Other theories suggest it was brought into the stadium by Argentine supporters who'd planned this demonstration for days, then passed down to the players during celebrations. What we know with absolute certainty is that multiple high-profile players handled that banner. It was captured on camera from numerous angles, and there's no ambiguity whatsoever about what happened. The debates are about intent, responsibility, and what the appropriate consequences should be. The political fallout was immediate. Within hours, prominent voices in British politics began demanding action against these players. The loudest voice came from Niall Gardner, a political analyst who runs the Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom and previously served as an advisor during the Thatcher administration. This background is crucial because Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister who ordered British forces to retake the Falklands in 1982. Gardner took to social media almost immediately, posting statements demanding that any Argentine Premier League player who participated in what he called an anti-British political stunt should have their UK work visa cancelled immediately. He called for zero tolerance and permanent deportation. His statements spread like wildfire. The Telegraph and other major British publications ran the story prominently. Television news featured it extensively. Radio shows devoted entire programs to debating whether this demand was justified. Critically, Gardner's intervention shifted the conversation from a sporting controversy to a legal and immigration issue. But here's where reality needs to be separated from rhetoric. Niall Gardner doesn't hold any official government position. He's a political commentator with influence, but no executive power. The actual authority to revoke visas rests entirely with the Home Office, the government department responsible for immigration. When independent immigration lawyers were consulted, they provided crucial context. Immigration specialist Osman Bashir, who co-founded Centuro Global, explained that extreme actions like visa revocation are typically reserved for cases involving national security threats, serious criminal activity, or direct incitement to violence. Simply displaying a political banner, however offensive many people find it, doesn't automatically meet the legal threshold for visa cancellation. However, there's an indirect route to the same result. If Premier League clubs decide to terminate these players' contracts, whether due to public pressure, sponsor concerns, or brand damage, the visa issue resolves itself. These players hold UK work visas specifically because they're employed by Premier League clubs. If that employment ends, the legal basis for their visa disappears, and they'd be required to leave the country. This creates an impossible situation for the clubs involved. These are valuable assets worth tens or hundreds of millions of pounds, players crucial to on-field performance. But clubs are also businesses with brands to protect, sponsors to satisfy, and fan bases to keep happy. If backlash becomes severe enough, clubs might decide that terminating contracts is the least damaging option. As of now, no Premier League club has made official statements about disciplinary action or contract termination, but you can guarantee that emergency meetings are happening, legal teams are being consulted, and contingency plans are being developed. Meanwhile, FIFA launched a formal investigation. On July 29, 2026, FIFA's disciplinary committee confirmed they'd opened proceedings targeting the Argentine Football Association, examining whether the banner display violated Article 4 of the laws of the game, which strictly prohibits political demonstrations at sporting events. The specific players under investigation are Giovanni Lo Celso, Lisandro Martínez, and Cristian Romero. This isn't symbolic. FIFA could impose significant fines, points deductions, or even competition bans. But this isn't the first time this exact issue has arisen. In 2014, Argentina received a fine of 30,000 Swiss francs for a similar Falklands-related banner incident. The penalty was so minor, it clearly failed to deter repeat behavior. If FIFA responds with equally mild punishment now, it will confirm suspicions that powerful footballing nations receive preferential treatment. The investigation extends beyond the banner. FIFA is also examining a violent brawl after the World Cup final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, where Spain defeated Argentina 1-0 in extra time. Immediately after the final whistle, vicious fights reportedly broke out between both squads. Leandro Paredes faces 3 separate allegations of assault. Nahuel Molina is being investigated for 2 assault incidents plus unsporting conduct. Thiago Almada faces scrutiny for unsporting behavior. Even Argentina's assistant coach, Roberto Fabian Ayala, the legendary former defender, is accused of assault. On Spain's side, Gavi is also named in disciplinary files. Photos and videos appear to show Molina making aggressive contact with Spanish midfielder Rodri, while Paredes was caught on camera grabbing defender Eric Garcia by the throat during the chaos. The Argentine Football Association faces a massive investigation covering discriminatory chants, offensive gestures, delayed kickoffs, failures to enforce security procedures, and inappropriate conduct by supporters and officials. According to FIFA's disciplinary committee, these incidents point to a pattern of behavior throughout the tournament. This is where FIFA's credibility is genuinely on the line. Following the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, FIFA opened similar proceedings against Argentina over wild celebrations after the final against France. The outcome? No punishment severe enough to prevent recurrence. In 2014, the 30,000 franc fine clearly didn't deter anything. Now, 12 years later, an identical banner appears on the biggest stage in world football. What message does FIFA send if these incidents keep receiving minimal punishment? Many believe responses are driven more by a nation's commercial power than the actual offense. Would FIFA honestly treat a smaller nation without global superstars or massive television audiences the same way? If the answer is no, then FIFA has a fundamental fairness problem. Now let's examine what's happening on the pitch, because these players' recent performances make their potential departure even more devastating for their clubs. Emiliano Martínez has been sensational for Aston Villa. Against Arsenal, he made at least 3 world-class saves that secured a vital point in Villa's push for European qualification. Against Manchester City, he was phenomenal, denying Erling Haaland multiple times in a match that could have been humiliating without his heroics. Villa's entire defensive structure is built around his commanding presence. Losing him would fundamentally change how Unai Emery sets up tactically. Cristian Romero's importance to Tottenham has been equally obvious. In the North London derby against Arsenal, Romero was absolutely immense, winning crucial duels against Gabriel Jesus and Bukayo Saka. Against Liverpool, he was Tottenham's best defender in a chaotic match. Ange Postecoglou's system relies on defenders comfortable playing a high line who can defend one-on-one in space. Romero fits perfectly. Replacing him would cost upwards of £50 million with no guarantee of the same tactical fit. At Chelsea, Enzo Fernández has started justifying his record transfer fee. Against Newcastle, he controlled midfield completely, completing over 90% of passes and creating 2 clear chances. Against Manchester United, he scored brilliantly and was Chelsea's best player. Mauricio Pochettino has finally figured out how to maximize him as the deep-lying playmaker who controls tempo. Losing Fernandes would force complete tactical redesign. Lisandro Martínez has been crucial for Manchester United despite earlier injury struggles. Against Barcelona in preseason, he showcased exactly why Erik ten Hag considers him indispensable. Against Liverpool in Premier League action, Martínez was outstanding. Ten Hag's system requires center-backs who are technically excellent and mentally tough. Martínez embodies those qualities and provides leadership. Replacing that combination would be incredibly difficult and expensive. Alexis Mac Allister's impact at Liverpool has exceeded expectations. Against Manchester City, he was everywhere, breaking up attacks and driving forward. Against Chelsea, he scored a vital goal. Against Tottenham, his work rate was essential. Jurgen Klopp has integrated him remarkably quickly, using him in multiple midfield roles. Losing Mac Allister would leave a massive hole after Liverpool already spent heavily on midfield reconstruction. These recent performances illustrate exactly what's at stake. We're talking about elite footballers in their prime, performing at the highest level week after week. The sporting impact of losing them would be enormous, but clubs might not have any choice if political pressure continues building. The pressure intensifies daily. British tabloids run increasingly aggressive stories. Social media campaigns demanding deportations gain momentum. Veterans organizations have formally written to government ministers. Some reports suggest even royal family members have been briefed given the diplomatic sensitivity. On the other side, South American media rallies around the players, framing this as an attack on national identity. There are calls for FIFA to protect players from what's characterized as political persecution. Some commentators suggest Argentina should boycott future matches in England if players are deported. This escalating rhetoric makes peaceful resolution harder. We're watching two proud nations with deep football traditions and unresolved grievances heading toward collision. The next weeks will be critical in determining whether cooler heads prevail or this spirals into crisis. FIFA's continued silence becomes more damaging daily. By refusing clear statements or decisive action, they're allowing the situation to spiral beyond their control. National governments are stepping where FIFA should be managing. If countries start using immigration law to punish players for stadium behavior, FIFA's authority becomes meaningless. Perhaps FIFA's silence is strategic, hoping controversy fades naturally, that diplomatic solutions emerge without FIFA taking controversial positions. If that's their strategy, it's an enormous gamble, because every day without FIFA leadership strengthens the narrative they're powerless or unwilling to enforce regulations involving commercially valuable nations. The transfer window adds urgency. If players face deportation or contract termination, clubs need immediate clarity to identify replacements. But the British government is taking its time, reviewing cases carefully, possibly negotiating behind scenes. This uncertainty makes planning impossible for clubs. Reports suggest elite European clubs outside England are monitoring closely, ready for opportunistic bids if world-class players suddenly become available at reduced prices. Juventus, Inter Milan, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain would love signing players at bargain prices because selling clubs have no leverage. For the players, this is nightmare. They went from World Cup heroes to potentially deported and banned from the richest league. Their properties, families, entire lives are in England, now threatened because of a banner displayed in post-match emotion. Whether punishment fits the offense or not, the life-changing severity is undeniable. Some players reportedly hired crisis management professionals to repair their British image. Rumors include planned charitable activities, public apologies, community engagement to demonstrate remorse. But will any of that satisfy public anger and political pressure, or is damage too severe to repair? This raises critical questions every football fan needs to consider. What precedent does this set? If players face deportation for political statements, where does it end? What about players supporting other controversial causes? What about owners with problematic political views? What about sponsors from countries with questionable human rights records? Conversely, if there are no consequences, what message does that send? That players can disrespect host nations without repercussions? That football exists in a protected bubble separate from the real world. That talent excuses any behavior regardless of how offensive to local communities. These are genuinely difficult questions without simple answers, striking at fundamental issues about what football represents in our globalized world. Is it pure entertainment kept separate from politics, or inherently political because it involves national teams, national pride, and players functioning as cultural ambassadors? The honest answer probably lies in complicated middle ground, but finding balance is difficult, especially when both sides feel genuinely wronged. British public feels insulted and disrespected. South American fans feel players are persecuted for patriotism. Both perspectives have validity, but both are entrenched in positions making compromise difficult. As this develops over coming weeks, we'll discover whether diplomatic solutions emerge or this escalates into crisis permanently changing football. Will Britain actually deport these players? Will FIFA finally impose meaningful sanctions? Will clubs protect their investments? Will players make dramatic gestures to diffuse tensions? Nobody knows these answers with certainty. And that uncertainty makes this story compelling and frightening for everyone involved. We're witnessing history being made in real time, and ramifications will echo through football for years. The haunting image that will remain in football history is Giovanni Lo Celso standing inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium with that massive banner spread across the grass, surrounded by teammates playing for the wealthiest Premier League clubs, while 40 years of painful, unresolved history hung silently between them and heartbroken England fans slowly filing out. The worldwide impact was extraordinary. Images spread to dozens of countries within hours. British media devoted massive coverage to demands for disciplinary action. Spanish-language broadcasters discussed the controversy for days. In Argentina, political debate shows treated it as matter of national importance. The most unexpected development came from a different direction. FIFA President Gianni Infantino eventually broke silence with calculated remarks about Argentina and Messi that generated debate, though he stopped short of directly addressing the banner. Instead, Infantino praised Argentina's campaign in terms many interpreted as implicit support. That calculated ambiguity revealed more about FIFA than any official statement could. Britain's conservative media embraced Gardner's comments as rallying point. In Argentina, newspapers focused on the dark history and tragic human cost. Stuck between competing narratives, Argentina's Premier League stars found themselves trapped in political conflict they never expected to join. The same football world debating whether these players should be forced from the wealthiest league must eventually admit their shared history cannot be settled by FIFA's disciplinary code. No fine measured in Swiss francs can heal wounds open for over 4 decades. Argentina celebrated historic victory in Atlanta, fell to Spain in the final, and now faces perhaps their toughest challenge. This match is played far from the pitch, without referee or final whistle, without certainty about how it ends. If this investigation offered you fresh perspective and exclusive details you haven't seen elsewhere, make sure to leave a like. We'll continue following every chapter of this historic controversy as events unfold in real time. This has grown far beyond sporting debate into brutal saga of football, politics, and history, and the heavy fallout when all three collide.